with fear, and we see that it's the overwhelmingly angry Adonis. The guards tremble in fear, and Adonis, with unparalleled anger, breaks free from his shackles. With fear in his voice, one of the guards points out that prisoner 1001 is free, and he wants to report it to the chief. There is no time though, so they make the incredibly wrong decision to try and put him back in the chamber. These hopeless fools think it will help if they all go in at once, but Adonis instantly eliminates one of them. Without a single word or wasted movement, Adonis expertly finishes off the other two. Daroka, probably wishing she still had her puppets, is terrified out of her mind, and Adonis begins to approach her. She begs Adonis not to do anything, but immeasurable anger courses through him, and it's as if words can't reach him. He fires a shot at her, but we see that he's somehow able to still be merciful, as he only shattered chains. An announcement is made to all the guards in the prison, warning that all cell doors and corridor partitions have been opened. Elsewhere, Director Yamato, whose earlobes could probably be seen from space, tells a blonde guy to handle the situation at the prison, and gives him permission to arm himself with weapons greater than Class 5. This guy speaks far too casually for Vice Director Yuki's liking, and is sent on his way. Yuki promises to kill that blonde boy eventually, but Yamato warns against it, as he is a high-ranking executive just like her. Director Pancake for Earlobes is confident in the guy's abilities, but knows that the prison is quite dangerous. At the prison, the chaos continues, and it is reported to the warden that even the confiscated item storage has been opened. He can't believe that Daroka managed to crack his phone's voice authentication system, and is deeply frustrated by her choice to free the one person they couldn't afford to let escape. Elsewhere, we see Adonis atop a building. He tests his powers by firing a bullet, and uses one of his written-style summoning spells called Gain. Adonis, clearly with only one goal in mind, exclaims that it's now time to end every last citizen. Back at the prison, Blonde Boy, whose real name is Eekout, reports that he has searched the entire internment camp, but found no signs of the boy. We see that taking care of the situation actually meant eliminating all the prisoners, and he learns that a building was struck by a massive shell. He will head there as soon as possible, but decides that he needs to clean up the cause of the mess first. Back in the city, Daroka's completely distraught. She blames herself for the catastrophe that's to come, since she couldn't stop Adonis. Nearby, Adonis roams the city, and we see that his destructive behavior has made the news. It reports that a massive artillery shell-like object was fired into a building. The extent of the damage is unclear, but it could be an attack by neighboring nations. Adonis continues to roam as he thinks about how Chloe would not praise him for what he's about to do. He imagines what she would say, emphasizing that getting revenge won't bring her back to life. He managed to escape, so she will want him to just go enjoy his life. Adonis is able to find just a tiny bit of comfort from these words, but some belligerent jerks, who probably deserve what's coming to them, call him a creep when they see him talking to himself. Adonis acknowledges that 10 years have passed since Chloe's death, but no matter how much time passes, he will never forget what happened. The look in her eyes, her voice, the words when she told him she loved him. He states that he loved her too, just as he starts using his written-style summoning magic. The earth shakes beneath the city, and this time Adonis has summoned a giant. Nearby, the police don't believe callers that are calling about a giant, but they quickly realize that something is wrong when a car comes crashing into their building. The driver is terrified of something huge, but the cops, doing what they do best, don't believe him either, and this brilliant detective, that probably deserves a raise, determines that the driver's just drugged out of his mind, and they should just arrest him. Sherlock calls the narcotics division, but quickly realizes his mistake when he actually sees the giant. The giant is doing immense damage to the city, leaving people in peril. Adonis then makes his way to the center of the city, as he exclaims that Emperor Goeth better not try to run. By the Emperor, Yamato is informed of the giant robot. It's passing through the business district and heading their way. They're unable to stop it, and all attempts to reach the Emperor have failed, but the Queen has informed them that he is not well. Director Earlobes declares a state of emergency. He requests air-ground support from all available aircrafts, and orders that all armored foot soldiers be sent as well. Yamato marvels at the giant robot, and is informed that the boy and his quill have gone missing from the prison, making it clear that the giant must be powered by magic. This makes things much simpler for the pair of earlobes with a body attached to them, as this means they only need to activate their magic photon suppression device. With the extermination of all witches, the device was put in underground storage, and it's uncertain if the 10-year-old device will work properly. Yamato leaves the issue of national importance in the hands of Yuki, and with that, the national state of emergency is declared. The giant continues its rampage, and we see that Adonis' rage spares no lives. Some tanks arrive hoping to end the catastrophe, but their attacks miss badly. For some unknown reason, their shells won't fly straight. Adonis calls them scum as he makes a demand for their lives, and has the giant punch a building with such sheer force that its debris destroys the tanks. Yuki can clearly tell from the massive destruction that Adonis's 10 years in confinement were spent meaningfully. It turned out to be a simulation in its mind without limits. Scientific research conducted within the mind. The ultimate environment to determine the most precise way to slaughter a nation. As Adonis continues his rampage, Yuki explains that the only way for a non-witch to use magic is through written-style summoning magic. It is the practice of understanding and systematizing the mechanisms of magic, and converting them into mathematical expressions using a special quill. However, mastering it wouldn't have been easy without such an excellent teacher. Right now, for Adonis, there's no difference between those who were present 10 years ago and those who weren't. Adonis is relentless in his attack. He states that if killing Chloe was humanity's great purpose, then everyone who lives in the country and reaps the benefits is just as guilty. Adonis then demonstrates his incredible power to summon anything at will, and summons some giant Gatling guns called the Bullet Bell. Our revenge-seeking protagonist is determined to make things right, as he wants to exchange an eye for an eye. He does just as the humans did to his teacher, and sprays bullets down on a large crowd. The young man that we saw 10 years ago has clearly been driven to the absolute edge. With tear-filled eyes and without any semblance of sanity left, he looks to the sky, finding a bone-chilling beauty in the aftermath of his rampage. However, something isn't quite right. Clearly disappointed and still distraught, Adonis wishes he could feel better about things. Nearby, we see that Ep2 is watching, and he is told that the spellcaster is in the palm of the giant's hand. All forces are told that their target is long-term prisoner, the witch's apprentice, Adonis. The assault on the giant starts with a group of fighter jets. They bombard the giant with several missiles, forcing Adonis off of it. With reckless abandon, missiles continue to rain down, putting civilians at great risk. A building is about to turn a very recently orphaned child into a pancake, but Doroka appears out of nowhere to save him. She leaves the kid with a stranger, and explains that she is on her way to stop Adonis. On top of a nearby building, Adonis determines that he's out of shape, and soldiers begin to descend on him. Back at the Imperial Castle, we see that while Emperor Goeth managed to maintain his impeccable mustache, he was not able to maintain his health. He is severely ill, so the Queen tells him not to worry about anything, and their empire will be just fine. She tells him to rest, and assures that he did a great job as Emperor in making sure the empire would be strong. The Emperor of Simperi credits the Queen for staying by his side and giving him the strength to do what he does. However, he coughs with enough intensity that it could probably dislodge all his internal organs, and we learn that he has an incurable disease. This absolute alpha male with a mountain of testosterone tells him that he needs no doctor since he is totally fine, even though he is casually holding a palmful of his own blood. Goeth begins to wonder if his illness is a curse from God himself. It doesn't matter though, he refuses to repent. They built a hyper-scientific civilization and burned their neighbors, the witches, for the sake of progress. The world and humanity could never advance as long as witches were around. As he gives his little self-assuring speech, we see that Adonis doesn't need any words and continues reducing the population. Goeth continues to explain that humanity must carve its own path alone. The new age has no need for magic, and if anything, magic would only get in its way. There is one thing he is certain of, and that is that he did the right thing. It begins to rain, and Goeth shows that his mustache isn't the only smooth thing about him, as he tells his queen that she is a flower that blossomed on the path of carnage. Elsewhere, Yamato's shocked to hear with his ears that their elite unit has been wiped out. However, what's even more startling is that a civilian is now approaching the target. We then watch as Adonis chokes out a soldier, and the soldier, seemingly with a death wish, tells Adonis that they should have ended his life 10 years ago, along with that witch. Adonis, with some of the coldest eyes he will ever see, agrees that they should have ended him, and even he wishes they had. Before Adonis can take out more of his frustrations, Doroka arrives to stop him. She begs that he stop his rampage, as he has already taken the lives of many citizens of this empire. She wonders if he hasn't done enough yet, and explains that she doesn't want to see any more innocent people die. The word innocent absolutely sets him off, and he shockingly ends the soldier's life right in front of her. Doroka has made a huge mistake, as her trying to tell him that these people are innocent has made him realize something. He was confused, but has now determined that whether they're radiant or not, all humans are his enemies, subjects for extermination, even if they're prisoners. Doroka shows no fear though, and tells him that Chloe wouldn't want this. She foolishly pushes her luck by continuing to remind him about Chloe, but this just makes Adonis even more furious, and he reminds the human scum to not casually speak Chloe's name. He assumes that Doroka is just there to distract him until the next wave of soldiers arrives. It's exactly the type of things humans would do since they always fight dirty, just like they did back then. He is certain that there's no way the witches would have lost to humans if they hadn't used cheap tricks. He tells Daroka to stay out of it since she knows nothing. However, Daroka knows far more than he thought. She states that his name is Adonis. It was the name the world's greatest witch gave to her beloved student. She then shocks him to his core as she states that this is common knowledge for witches like herself. Adonis is in absolute disbelief for just a moment. She begins to introduce herself, but Adonis becomes enraged again. He is certain that she's just messing with his head, and he points out that all witches are dead. He tells the human scum to never speak of witches again, but she explains that they managed to survive the witch hunts. With a whirlwind of emotions, Adonis asks with frustration that if they survived, why didn't they come to save Chloe? Why did they let their fellow witch die? She apologizes over and over again and explains that they were all desperate to escape. Adonis doesn't want to hear any apologies though, and reminds her that it's too late. Chloe's already gone. Daroka then leaves him in disbelief as she states that Chloe will come back. They will bring her back to life. Adonis only takes this as an insult though, and prepares to end her life for her absurd lies. She pleads to him and explains that she infiltrated the country to save him in order to bring back Chloe. They need his memories of her. They need him to resurrect Chloe. Adonis doesn't even seem to be listening to her anymore as he summons a sword and continues asserting that he will end everyone. He will end her and anyone that gets in his way. He will end anyone who defies him and everyone who speaks of Chloe. Daroka decides that if that's what Adonis needs, then she will gladly give her life to satisfy him. She says that she's just glad to have met him, and Adonis is reminded of when Chloe said those exact words. Adonis collapses to the ground, breaking down in tears. His relentless pursuit of revenge pauses for a moment, overshadowed by the faintest glimmer of hope to bring back Chloe. Adonis isn't sure what to believe anymore, but is certain that he desperately wants Chloe back, and asks Daroka if it's really possible. She assures him that it is. Daroka instructs him to come with her, and promises that he isn't alone anymore. Adonis, changing his focus from vengeance to a desperate grasp at hope, reaches out to her, only to be utterly stunned when Daroka gets shot. It's Ep2, and he's just disappointed he couldn't hit both of them.